Am I the a-hole for showing my daughter the text her fiancé sent me? I'm a widower with 2 children, 23-year-old biological daughter and 17-year-old stepson, Adam. My late wife passed away 2 years ago, leaving me to care for Adam, disabled, wheelchair-bound. His sister loves him, and she always visits and checks in on him. Her fiancé Mike and I don't get along because of how he behaves around us. Unlike us, Mike comes from a prosperous family, and they always tend to show off what they have. Mike treats my daughter well, but acts as if me and my family were less than. He doesn't eat nor drink anything at my house. He and his mom make comments about our living space and constantly brag about what his family got. My daughter was visiting and said she wanted me and her brother be at the wedding to share her day. The day I received the invitation, Mike called and expressed how he and his family weren't thinking Adam's presence at his sister's wedding was necessary. He went on about his family's upper-class guests and how Adam's presence would feel out of place, and suggested I come alone. I told him my daughter said she wanted Adam there, but he kept coming up with suggestions till we started arguing. I checked with my daughter to clear any misunderstanding, and Mike then said Adam could come. I then got text from him talking about how it's his wedding, so I needed to stop sticking my nose where it doesn't belong. He mentioned my son isn't technically family anyway, so it wouldn't matter if he's uninvited. Claiming I was trying to be mean on purpose to make it hard because I don't like him. He finished by saying that this is my fair warning, and that if I choose to make my son's presence at the wedding my hill to die on, then I just sign away any rights to any future grandchildren he and my daughter will have. That was it. He kept calling, but I blocked him. I invited my daughter to my home to tell her I won't attend if my son won't. She asked what happened. I showed her the text Mike sent me, and she was shocked. Said nothing, just took a picture of it and left. My sisters came the next day, saying the wedding was off after a huge argument between Mike and my daughter because of me. Argued that I created this problem when I showed my daughter the text, and I could have respected the groom's rules since it's his wedding. But I was being controlling, not wanting my daughter to be happy. Went on about Mike being high class, a man with a salary, his own house and car. More relatives were saying they would have had someone watch Adam if this was the issue. But it wasn't. Then they claimed it was because of my resentment towards Mike. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You saved your daughter from getting married to an ableist bigot. It was much better for her to find out what he's really like now than after they're bound together by legal paperwork. Holy cow, this! Imagine how she would feel if she didn't find out until after marriage, or worse, after kids. She cares about her brother, and her fiancé showed his true colors. Better to find out before it becomes more complicated to leave. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Oh, hell no! Don't let your daughter marry that prick. If Opie prevented daughter marrying Mike, he'd be just as bad as Mike. Hopefully he stays true to her word now that she's realized what a scummy, controlling snob he is. Not the a-hole. The wedding's not off because of you. It's off because of Mike's snobbishness and ableism. You know the old thing about how you can tell a person's true self by their treatment of waitstaff and cashiers? It applies equally well here. Your daughter deserved to know what her fiancé was saying. She might not be happy right now, but your daughter dodged a bullet. You're the one who yelled at her to duck. Not the a-hole. The wedding is off because your daughter realized that if her fiancé was willing to treat her brother this way, then he wasn't the type of man she wanted to spend her life with. Tell your gold-digging sisters that Mike is now single. They can chase after him if these assets are so important. But you have a family that cares for each other, and that's all you need. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for rudely telling my husband I decide who is in the delivery room? So for context, I'm 28 female, I'm currently pregnant with my partner, 31 male, and I'm a first-time mom. My hospital recently changed their policy and are now allowing 2 support people in the delivery room. My mother-in-law made comments early on that she wanted to be there for the birth, and this woman is not subtle. At the time, I felt protected by COVID protocols, but set that expectation straight. I explicitly stated that anytime I give birth, it will be a private medical experience that only includes my husband and medical team. I thought that it was clear it wasn't a debate, because it's my body and I have the autonomy to decide who sees it in any context. Additionally, I do not have a good relationship with my mother-in-law. She just recently started initiating positive interactions after years of me trying, and it's absolutely because she's an "it's my grandbaby" person. Recently, my husband told me we needed to have a discussion. He starts off by saying he mentioned the support person protocol change to his mother. I tried not to react, but immediately I blurted out asking why he would do that. He goes on to say he knows his mother really wants to be in the room to see the baby's first breath. I replied logically, if your mom sees their first breath, she will also see me pushing and will be looking down at my canal. I actually had to explain why I refused to give birth in front of his mother. I then told him that there are only two priorities in the delivery room, and neither of them are his mother or her feelings. The discussion continued back and forth. Finally, I started crying. I told him that the labor and birth will be the most painful and vulnerable experience of my life, and that I need him to protect me. I told him that anyone who refuses to protect their pregnant partner failed them, and it's just dead weight in the delivery room. My husband told me I'm rude, other negative things too, left our apartment, and when he came back, he wasn't speaking to me. This is where I think I could be the a-hole. I told him giving me the silent treatment, because I won't let his mother spectate at my most intimate area rips open, was very immature and made me worry if he has the emotional intelligence to support me in the delivery room. I think my husband took my hint, but I didn't explicitly say that I can decide he won't be allowed in there either. I will say I would be devastated if I had to do that, and never thought this would ever be a problem during my pregnancy. So, am I the a-hole? Info. I did cuss when talking about freaking ripping, but that was it. I also wasn't yelling, but I was sobbing loudly enough during it that my neighbor next door knocked to check on me after I left. Edited for added info. I saw some questions. Sorry about not including this originally. I'm a mess currently. I have a mother and two sisters, both moms, who I love endlessly, but I didn't ask any of them to be in the delivery room because I only wanted my husband there. Also, I did not yell at my husband at any point during this interaction. I was sobbing. I didn't lose my cool. In fact, my husband's screaming was why my neighbor in the apartment next door heard and came and knocked after he left. She told me when I answered the door, I move slower these days, that she was so glad I answered because she was considering calling 911. Not the a-hole. Your husband pulled a moronic move going behind your back to let mother-in-law know she might be able to be in there. That, my dear, is fully 100% up to you. In fact, I think you need to let the staff know that under no circumstances is she allowed in the room. Give them a close-up mugshot of her. This 100%. If possible, let them know ASAP, so that if she tries to get in on the day, they can kick her straight out. I'd skip kicking her out and go straight to having her arrested. Not the a-hole. This is insane. Hold your ground, Opie. Ask your husband how he'd feel if your dad chaperoned a future vasectomy. You know, to provide support and coach him through it. Some people need analogies. Not the a-hole. What is with all the mother-in-laws in the world suddenly deciding they need to see the birth of their grandchildren? No mother-in-law I've ever met thought she deserved to be in the delivery room. It's completely up to you who is in the room. But beware, she might try to sneak in. Make sure the hospital staff knows it's just you and your husband. Maybe have him watch a video of a live birth so he understands how absolutely vulnerable you will be in that moment. Thank you for the suggestion because I was thinking of this, but was worried I was being over the top. I told him I wanted him to watch a human birth when he brought this up. Now it's required because honestly, I don't want him in the room if he's so ignorant and uneducated on the process. Because then, he really will just be dead weight and probably will cause me and the baby stress. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for finally telling my sister I asked to move in with my dad to get away from her? My sister Hannah, 26 female, is 2 years older than me, 24 female. Growing up with her was fine until she turned 10, and then her personality just switched. Everything was an argument. I have no idea if it was really triggered by her dad leaving the country, back to Honduras, or mental health issues. I never asked, because she never wanted to talk about it. While Hannah and I share a mom, We do not share fathers. Mom wasn't with either of our dads, romantically, for long. And I don't judge her for that, it is just how things were. My dad stuck around, wanted everything to do with me. Hannah's dad was around until he left, got married, and rarely called. I went through a lot of instability and told my dad how miserable I was. Mom couldn't focus on both of us. Sometimes my dad would pick me up and take me for a week. I would come back to my things ripped up, Hannah clinging to me, or her shouting at me that she hated me, wanted me to go away. My mom didn't know how to make it stop, and I seemed to be the target of Hannah's jealousy and emotional fits. So when my dad met stepmom, Judy, and they talked about moving to her hometown, Portland, I begged to come with them. At this point, I was living with them almost full-time. Most of my things were at their house because Hannah liked to just destroy my stuff for fun. Dad took me to school and I would see my mom on the weekends, but even that might be cut short. My mom agreed after I said it was for the best. I was already miserable, and she should focus all her time on Hannah. And it worked out. I had a family where I wasn't suddenly attacked for simply existing. And Hannah had all the attention she needed to have therapy and work on her problems. But I guess my mom told her that custody was awarded to my dad because he made more. Hannah was visiting me in Portland 2 years ago and asked if I ever resented the courts for not letting us grow up together. I asked where she heard that. I then said, "I love you, Hannah, but I moved in with my dad because you treated me like crap." It recently came up that Hannah is back in therapy because she keeps remembering the comment I made and feels terrible about it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Look, your sister went through obvious mental problems and took them out on you. She was a confused and scared 10-year-old. I do not think she is a horrible person for that, and I love and commend the fact that you two have reconnected now that you are both adults. You are a star for seeing things how they are, not holding them against her. But that said, you are adults now. You are allowed to speak the truth and you did it in a respectful manner. Her behavior impacted your life. Things got a lot better when we were in high school and college. Distance really helped. But she seems to misremember a lot of what happened when we were kids. My mom told her a lot of things differently that I feel happened. And I think she didn't realize I remembered the things she did and still kind of resented. She might remember them less vividly or completely blocked them out since she was only 10, and your mother has been sheltering her. I mean, I hardly remember anything from when I was 10. You? That does not mean your feelings are not valid. People doing horrible things to others are much more likely to forget what they have done because they are not the ones who got hurt. It is not a shame to remember of this, as long as you do not do it repeatedly / hold it over her. I hope you got some therapy / help with this as well. Stay safe. Not the a-hole for being honest with her as an adult, and she probably needed therapy anyways. I honestly don't know why she stopped. She gets emotionally irregular if she doesn't go and talk stuff out. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my daughter the basement suite after I renovated it only because she refused to give up her room upstairs? I've been remarried for 2 years now, and we recently had a son. I also have a 14-year-old daughter from my first marriage, and a 12 and 9-year-old stepsons. When my wife was 5 months pregnant, I asked my daughter if she could swap rooms with my stepsons. We had only 4 bedrooms at the time. My daughter had the largest room. Our plan was for my daughter to take the second largest room, my stepsons to share her larger room, and convert the smallest room into a nursery. I thought this was a fairly reasonable ask, but my daughter made it into a huge fight. And worse was when my ex got involved, who then threatened to take me to court to reduce my custody of my daughter all over a room. This caused way too much stress at home, and I gave in, which I do regret now. But I then proceeded to renovate the basement suite. With my father's help, the basement now had the largest bedroom with a lounge and a full bathroom. It's very easily the nicest part of the house. The kids then started fighting over who would move down there. And I very firmly told my daughter that I renovated it because she refused to give up her room. So my 12-year-old stepson gets to move down there. I don't know if it's just puberty, but my daughter has become extremely hostile and downright mean over this. She no longer comes over as much as before, citing the unfair room as the reason. My ex fully supports her. and I have to wait 5 months before I can even fight this in court. At this point, I'm not even sure it's worth the legal cost because she'll be 15 in December and her opinion will count in the court. Am I the a-hole for not giving in to my daughter's frankly bratty demands? It's killing me that my daughter feels like I'm pushing her out of the family, but I want to stay true to what I think is right. All attempts to get us in family therapy has been denied by my ex. And my poor father now feels terrible because he's being partly blamed since he helped with the renovations. I don't think you are an a-hole, but you haven't handled this well. Your daughter is in that awkward teen phase, and if the initial room was always hers, assuming your wife and stepsons moved into your house, then I can totally see her feelings displaced in favor of the new family and the new baby. I think it depends on how you ask her and explain the situation. She now sees a nice fancy room downstairs and her stepbrother get it and feels further punished. Not saying she's right, and she's definitely acting bratty and entitled, but you might want to examine why your daughter feels so displaced when she visits/lives with you. Not the a-hole for this situation specifically. She literally got what she wanted though. They had to go a different course because she wasn't going to agree. So she kept what she wanted originally. She has no reason to feel punished or displaced. She's being enabled by her abusive mom. I've actively watched my sister go through some horrible custody crap, taking mistreatment from her son because her ex is brainwashing him to hate her, and she has to play nice for court purposes. She just moved to another state for a job opportunity and has a year to show that it's a good place for her son to be as well, / that she can support him there. And his dad is already turning it around that the courts are deeming her unfit to be a mom 100%, instead of realizing that she was his main provider for 13 years. When it comes to manipulative exes and courts, there's no good way to handle this mess. I think Opie did everything they were supposed to do, to the point where he didn't force his daughter to move when she didn't want to. Daughter is being brainwashed by mom, plain and simple. Parental alienation is what I'm looking for. 100%. Also not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. If there is one here, it's your ex. Your request of your daughter was reasonable given the dynamics of the children in the household. At 14, she's old enough to understand this, but it sounds like there are other things at play that are influencing her behavior. The divorce, your ex poisoning the well, trying to blend families and her feeling pushed out that make me empathetic towards her.
Update. Am I the a-hole for stopping paying my ex's bills? Original post. My ex and I split up about 3 years ago. No bad feelings. We just drifted apart until we realized that we were now co-parents, not husband and wife anymore. We have 2 kids, 13 and 10. My ex used to work as an infrastructure engineer, and I was working as an owner-driver with my own truck. Around the time the kids were born, we decided she would be a stay-at-home mom. The trucking was going well, and I had bought a second truck and a van, so I stayed home doing all the planning and admin while I had the trucks and van out. When the youngest started school, my ex went back to work part-time, but her time out of the workforce had hit her really hard. She needed to relearn a lot and basically couldn't get back in at her previous level. She had to pretty much start over. Over the years, the haulage firm had expanded, and frankly, it was getting a bit of a pain. We were too big for where we were and needed to move to a new yard, so I sold it off for a reasonable sum and set up freelancing as a developer. I did computer science at uni. We both had relatives pass away, leaving us property and money, so we were mortgage-free on the family home. When we split, I moved into a house I had inherited. We basically split the assets in half and split the costs of the kids' activities in half. When we were sitting down looking at the money, she concluded that she would need to go back to work full-time and would miss time with the kids. Since they were with me the 3 days she worked and every other weekend, I felt bad because if she hadn't been out of work for so long, she'd be in a better place career-wise. So I offered to cover half of her bills until the kids went off to uni. She didn't want to at first, but I said that she had helped me out and had now suffered as a result, so it was only fair that I return the favor. It was helping my kids out, and I didn't want her to run down the savings that were essentially the kids' inheritance. This situation worked out about as well as it could. We co-parent happily. Everything is good. Until she met a new guy. He's someone we knew from way back, but we lost touch with. They started dating. She's really happy. And she's talking about him moving in. I'm okay with that. The kids get on with him, and I trust her judgment. I know she wouldn't put anything ahead of the kids. So I said to her, if Lado's moving in, you won't need the money toward the bills, will you? She said no, she wouldn't, but she was thinking of putting it into the kids' accounts. Great idea. I'd put some on their cards for pocket money and the rest in their savings. So that was what we agreed. But when the new chap found out, he went up the wall and accused me of being controlling and committing financial abuse. A few of our friends have also said that he's got a point and that it looks like jealousy. So, am I the a-hole here? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. Looks like he was interested in the free ride. And now that the gravy train has stopped, he's all upset. Your ex had no issues with the money stopping because she isn't interested in taking advantage of you. And two adults living together should be able to cover their own expenses. But new boyfriend doesn't want that. Even court-ordered alimony stops if the recipient remarries, no? It depends on where they live, but in many places now even living together is enough to adjust or cancel alimony. As too many people were taking advantage of the marriage loophole, living with their significant other, and simply refusing to marry so it wouldn't cancel the alimony. So many places have changed their laws to state that if the person receiving alimony is living with another person, it can or will impact alimony. Not the a-hole. Tell anyone moaning that you pay child support for your children, not grown men looking for a free ride. He'll already be saving in rent as the house is paid for. Is he really looking for his bills and groceries to be paid for by you too? If someone moves into another's home, they contribute to living there. That said, contribute too. Not pay half as your kids are eating the food and running up the utility bills. Agree with you except for the last part. It seems the kids live with OP about half the time, so I do not see why he would have to pay for food or utilities, unless the ex also pays for similar costs made at OP's house, which I assume she does not. Because my ex spent so long out of the workforce, she basically had to start over at the bottom, and it was a rough market post-COVID for network technicians. It was a choice of 3 days a week with good balance of time with the kids, but very tight budgets. Watching every penny, no treats kind of thing, versus 5 days a week. All that good stuff, but not much time with the kids. So I offered to cover some of the bills so that she could stay part-time. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, it's money well spent. I think it was a nice thing to do. I don't understand why the boyfriend can't chip in for lodging, food, etc. It's starting to look like he didn't want to. Apparently, he was getting evicted and hadn't told my ex. My best mate reckons once he was in and settled, he'd get laid off. Edit/mini update. We have joint 50-50 custody of the kids, so I have no actual obligation to be paying anything. That said, I don't want my kids to miss out on their many and varied activities, so I continue to pay for half of those. Likewise, I offered the extra money to help with bills because I wanted my kids to benefit from time with both parents and to not have to live in a house where money was a worry. Some have mentioned the division of assets from inheritance and the sale of my business. These are mostly locked away in long-term investments, so they aren't readily available. We were perhaps unwise in doing this, but we saw it as the kids' inheritance. My ex would rather have worked more than dipped into that money for living costs. The ex came round for a cup of tea and a chat. It seems that Lado was indeed thinking she was his meal ticket. Apparently, he had suggested moving in, but had not told her that his landlord was ending his tenancy with a Section 21 to sell the property. When she started discussing money and his contribution, he asked why, since I was paying for the kids. So she told him that if he was living there, he needed to chip in, and that if he moved in, she couldn't keep asking me for money. She's upset, and I think that's going to be over. In the meantime, he's ranting to anyone who'll listen that I'm the typical evil jealous ex, and that I'm controlling her with money. Now for the full update 10 days later. Thanks for all the comments and advice. Just thought I would update you all on the last week. So, Lado turned out to have been getting kicked out of his place, not through any fault of his own. The landlord was selling. And he hadn't told my ex. Also, he works with my best mate, who told me that he's on incredibly thin ice and was on his last chance due to attendance issues. Me, the ex, and Lado got together at the weekend and had a long chat. The main points were, 1. If he is going to be her partner and live there, then he has to step up and contribute both financially and also with the children. 2. As regards the bills, both my ex and I had the expectation that another adult in the house would be contributing, meaning that bill money from me would be superfluous. 3. I agreed that stopping the money because someone moves in, and potentially restarting it if they move out, does look like it's controlling, although it was agreed that I didn't have that intent. 4. I said that I would continue giving my ex the money, and that if it was surplus to requirements, she would put it in the kids' accounts. I do trust her to do this. At that point, I left and went home thinking all was good. I'm on holiday with the kids this week, and I got a warning that the house alarm was going off. I rang my neighbor, and he went round and said that one of the windows had been smashed, and that my other car had all its windows smashed. I logged into my cameras on the iPad, and sure enough, it's Lado, smashing the heck out of the car and throwing bricks at the window. Turns out that after I left, he and my ex had a major talk where she laid out some home truths and expectations, and when she didn't like the reaction she got, she ended it. So a couple of days later, he got angry and came round to my place and smashed it up. I obviously reported it to the police. With me being away, they spoke to me over the phone and asked me to send all the footage and a statement, and they'd speak to him that day. Turns out he got stopped on the way back from mine, was over the limit, and was sleeping it off in custody before he could be charged. Edit. I've seen a couple of comments about how I need to speak to my ex and tell her to be more careful. I 100% trust her judgment in who comes into the kids' lives. I was just as surprised by him as she was, and like most people, she's capable of learning from experience. Also, another edit, the Glaziers have been back out. Oh, the lady next door big time for all the help she's been. And apparently the total bill just for the house is going to be about £7,000. That's not counting the car, which is an old Rover I was restoring, so I've no idea how much that will cost. Here's wishing Lado all the health, happiness, and success that he deserves. With him being locked up, he will for sure lose the job he was on thin ice at because of attendance. Though I guess if he goes to prison for destruction of property and not being able to pay for the damage, at least he'll have a roof over his head and 3 meals per day. This is Britain. He'll get fined, at most a low-level community order. He'll lose the job anyway because he will certainly be banned from driving. Some people just can't help themselves from self-sabotaging. I've got some sympathy to a certain extent because he suffers really badly with PTSD from when he was in Iraq for Operation Telek. But I was there too, and it's like, dude, we're all suffering, but you have to do something to help yourself, and he never has. Sounds like ex's judgment might not be all that you thought it was. I wouldn't go that far. Look at how many women talk about how the mask of some dude only slips after they think they have her locked down. I volunteer with abused victims, and it's super common that everyone around the abuser thinks they are a great person until they themselves see the mask slip. He's one of these people that always manages to charm people. I think he's some sort of sociopath or narcissist. One question: why not just stay together and make life cheaper in these times? It seems co-parenting or cohabitating would be cheaper and better for the kids, even if you slept in different rooms. I get that neither would have total privacy. You two seem in your writing to get along so well. The short version is that we ended up being roommates that were looking after kids instead of husband and wife. We went to couples counseling and all that, and we came to the conclusion that it was too late for us as a couple, but we would still salvage the co-parenting, which after a lot of hard work we're managing. Next story. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my girlfriend after she became a stripper? I, 20 male, just broke up with my girlfriend, 21 female, and now I'm kind of wondering if I handled it wrong. We were together for almost a year. Everything was chill. We got along great, barely fought, and I really thought we were solid. Then a couple of weeks ago, she told me she got a new job as a stripper. At first, I thought she was joking, but she was serious. She said she needed money and didn't want to keep working retail because the hours sucked and the pay was trash. I get it, she has bills, but I just didn't expect that to be the job she'd pick. She said it was just dancing, nothing extra, and that it was good money. She didn't act ashamed about it or anything. I didn't flip out or anything in the moment. I told her I didn't know how I felt about it and that I needed to think. She told me it's her body, her job, and she's not doing anything wrong, which, yeah, fair. But honestly, I couldn't get past it. I kept thinking about her dancing half naked for random dudes, and it just didn't sit right with me. I started feeling weird every time I thought about it, like I wouldn't be able to fully support that and still feel good in the relationship. So a few days later, I told her I didn't think I could keep doing this. I said I respected her choice, but it just wasn't something I was cool with. She got really mad and said I was being judgmental and insecure, that I only liked her when it was convenient for me. I don't know, man. I didn't try to control her or tell her not to do it. I just said I couldn't be in a relationship where I felt like that all the time. Some of my friends say I'm being soft or overthinking it, but I really didn't want to fake being okay with something I wasn't. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with her after she started stripping? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She's free to take a job as a stripper, and you're free to not want to date a stripper. It's not like he said do this or I'll break up with you. He just stated he wasn't comfortable anymore and chose to move on. OP, you handled this well, and this isn't about control. She is upset, as are you. Lots of people would not want to date someone who is a stripper, and that's okay. We have to live in a way that we can live with. The thing is, there are many situations where neither party is in the wrong, but are still upset when the other party doesn't agree. This is one of those. He is not wrong for not wanting to be in a relationship with a stripper. She's not wrong in doing something to support herself. There is simply a disconnect. If she was a stripper when you started dating her, that's one thing. I dated a stripper and didn't have an issue. She was comfortable with it, didn't cross the line some do, wasn't an addict, etc. The thing is, according to her and other strippers I've known, it can drastically change a person, and they don't notice it while it's happening. Yes, there are straight up doing it for the great money people, but depending on the person, they can easily be drawn into the seedy side. It also depends on the club, their security, their awfulness, etc. There are a lot of factors to weigh, but you're not the a-hole for owning you're not comfortable with it and ending things. Your decision holds equal weight with her decision. Been there too. I was dating a really nice girl, didn't drink or anything. Within a year, she became a party girl, coke and all. She left the club she was working at and went to one where the guys could grab her. I left her, couldn't handle it anymore. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife I feel more like her roommate than her husband? I'm 44 male. My wife is 42. We've been married for 7 years, together for 10. For the last year or so, I felt like we've been living parallel lives, coexisting in the same house but barely connecting. No real intimacy, barely any meaningful conversation. She comes home from work, immediately goes to the bedroom to scroll her phone or binge her shows, and I just exist in the background. I've tried initiating date nights, cooking dinners, even suggesting therapy, but it always ends with her saying she's too tired or not in the mood. Last week, after yet another night of her going to bed without even saying goodnight, I finally broke down and said, I feel more like your roommate than your husband. She got really quiet, then really angry. She said I was guilt-tripping her and being manipulative, and that she's the one who has been carrying the emotional burden of the marriage for years. This shocked me. I thought I was the one trying to bridge the gap. She told me that if I feel like a roommate, maybe that's what I deserve because I haven't been the man she signed up for. I asked her what she meant, and she just said, you used to try harder, now you just sulk. I didn't even know what to say to that. I left the house for a few hours just to clear my head. Now she's acting like I blew everything out of proportion, but I can't shake the feeling that something deeper is broken between us. I never meant to hurt her. I just wanted to tell her how I felt. But now I'm wondering if I was being selfish for saying it like that. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife I feel like a roommate? Not the a-hole. You just said how you felt, and it clearly needed to be said. If the vibe is off for a year straight, someone's gotta speak up. That's not guilt tripping. That's being honest. Sounds like y'all both feel unheard and it's catching up fast. This makes sense. Being honest about how you feel after a year of tension isn't guilt tripping. It's overdue. Holding it in just lets resentment build. At least OP is trying to have a real conversation instead of pretending everything's fine. Nah man, not the a-hole. Feeling like a roommate in your own marriage is rough. Trust me, been there, done that. You gotta speak your truth, bro, but also gotta listen to hers. She may be going through some stuff too. Communication is key, my dude. See if she's up for therapy or at least a real heart-to-heart. Sending good vibes your way. Hang tough. Totally agree. OP needed to speak up, and now it's about making space to really talk it out. A heart-to-heart or therapy could help clear the air and maybe bring them back to each other.